Like Seamus Heaney, I have no spade to follow women and men like them. But I am going to speak about my effort to translate The Candle of Vision into Irish. And as we heard from Laura, it has already been translated into French. But the Irish language has experienced a stunted growth. And there are many, many works that are not available in the Irish language that are available in other languages. And if we took the counsel, the wise counsel of Una Walsh from Cregan Graveyard and try and step beyond the colonialized mindset that we have, we would never allow so much time to elapse without considering the works of A.E. Russell and many other authors and poets and also other forms of media in our native language. Thankfully, the younger generation, the next generation, well, they're not going to accept what we accepted. And they're demanding that all the modern art forms are available in the Irish language. So that's the why. I had read The Candle of Vision slowly, and it is to be read a sentence at a time. And to be very honest, it was fairly opaque for me. And I am a slow reader. And like listening to audiobooks or reading other books, only a certain portion remains with you and revisits you at times when you need the wisdom you've come across in films or in books. But having said that, going through the process of translating The Candle of Vision allowed me to go behind the words and go behind the ideas that must have inspired A.E. George Russell to write The Candle of Vision. So let's have a little think for a moment about what the world was like when A.E., aged a bit younger than I am now, in Dublin. What was going on in the world between 1914 and 1918? And it came out in 1918, we're told. And the Great War. And they say that 11 million people or so died. And, you know, even if one more or one less, that figure is hugely rounded up, or probably rounded down, I imagine. But, you know, the world was a grim place. And we are told by Henry Summerfield that A.E. got some relief from what his fellow man and, well, mainly fellow men were doing to each other. And he set about writing short essays, I suppose you could call them, on, you know, his reminiscences and his spiritual journey inwards, downwards, and outwards as far as possible. And also I believe that he looked upon the Candle of Vision as a guidebook. And he's very explicit about that anything that he was able to achieve in his inward journey into the inner territory within himself and the inner territory of the earth, each and every one of you can also achieve that. So he starts off describing his life as a young boy growing up in Lurgan, and in some way he describes that he wasn't a traditionally bright boy, didn't really do well at school, and because the education system didn't suit him really, or his style of learning. And he talks about his time out around the roads on the outskirts of Armagh city, where the spiritual beings visited him for the first time. And he goes through the various degrees of enlightenment that he experienced on his journey. And it's a remarkable piece of work. When it was finished, it made its way, we're told, into the hands of Gandhi, who spoke very favorably about it. And I was confronted with the prospect of translating into the Irish language this philosophical work. And I do stand to be corrected, but it is my humble opinion that there are not so many books that you could put under the category of philosophy in the Irish language. But, A.E.'s Candle of Vision is definitely a mystical work, a philosophical work. And some of the issues that I found myself confronted with when translating the Candle of Vision were that the very idea of being in the Candle of Vision has a number of different meanings. There's just being where you are being, and also, the being and the number of different beings that seem to exist within any one given being. And maybe if you're prepared to think about what happens to you just before you drift off to sleep and ask yourselves, are you visited by images of strangers or familiar faces or frightening ideas? And I think A.E. would say that that all those images and visions have a source, and that they are not in the way many people think of such imaginations, that they are maybe a stitching together of things we've seen during the day or glimpsed on the television or maybe read in a book, but they have an actual source, even so far as his very powerful description of a UFO, which is very graphic and very bright and way ahead of its time in terms of the the mechanical workings of this fast-moving, brightly shining vessel that appears on a sacred mountain to him, and even describing the captain of the vessel, and that he could reach out and touch him. And so A.E. would think that may have made its way into his imagination from possibly another realm, another world, but nevertheless it arrived in his imagination way before it arrived in the imagination of others. Even though I might just add that in our own mythology, we have a description of a boat, a ship coming across the sky, and sailor men coming down to earth. So, maybe our own storytellers were a wee bit ahead of A.E. Russell. So it's not new, this notion of vessels coming across the sky. And translating these ideas into Irish, the first thing I had to do with the Candle of Vision was ask myself, should I go with his style, which is, long sentences and qualifications and a recursive approach? And the answer that I quickly arrived at was no, because even his friend W.B. Yeats thought of his style as being, a bit old-fashioned, but it really worked, and nobody could do it like him, and it suited him, and it was always hard to contradict anything he said, because everything was so all-encompassing. But anyway, nowadays, the style in translating is, break long sentences up, think of your target audience, and you're not writing it in a sort of a century-old Irish language version of the English. You're actually writing it in as native Irish as possible. So some of the ideas that were difficult to translate, pluralized a lot of words. So he would have said things like energies. He would have written things like imaginations, and our forebears, and our language keeps those ideas in the singular. So if you look up the dictionary for imaginations, you just get imagination. So the Irish psyche keeps that as a sort of a singular concept, and does likewise with energies. It's energy, and it's not energies, it's energy. And as we know, energy can never be created or brought to destruction. It has to change form. So, I think it's a different language, and it's a different window on the world. And another idea, or A.E. was way ahead of himself, I think, in his portmanteau words. Joining two concepts together and getting a sort of a modern word. Out-realizations is one that springs to mind. And it's not easy to do that in Irish, because although we have very ancient portmanteau words in the Irish language, some of them quite vulgar, I might add. But think yourself, it's hard to figure out what he's getting at with out-realizations, and then try and do that in a different language. And another thing that, so another issue that arose was that A.E. had a full chapter on the language of the gods. And he developed his own symbols to convey the language of the gods. And he was looking for correspondences between syllables that go into making words and various feelings, various ideas, probably all tracing back to the basic elements of earth, air, wind and fire, and the periodic table sort of breaks all those down even further, but they're the basic elements that go into making everything. And probably, if you really, really think about it, go into making each and every one of you. And this is an important point. It's a bit of a stretch, but including your thoughts. Because, something is required to generate those thoughts. And it's from the non-physical world, which was so important to A.E. Russell. So I have completed the translation, and this is how I did it. I slapped down the translation very quickly, sometimes on the train, other times 5 minutes waiting for something else to happen, and then revisited it and polished it off and finessed it, checked that it included all the vital elements of the original, that it was a true realization of this important work, and then, typed it up, and then let it germinate for a while, revisited it, and read it very carefully, and proofread it myself 4 or 5 different times, read it aloud. And I'm going to say to you now that if any of you have ever struggled with reading anything like Ulysses, for example, listen to it. It's far easier when you listen to it. It really, really is. And that is also true of the Candle of Vision. It is a tricky sort of book to read, but I have listened to it. And I've said this to other people. I often listen to it as I'm going to sleep at night. It sends me off to sleep. And so just to finish off on the point about the language of the gods, all the references in the sounds and the symbols he uses for those sounds and the basic elements of language, they refer to the English language. And I had to, so imagine, reading that in Irish, but the references are to the English language in the Irish language. So how I got round that was by using the International Phonetic Alphabet. And it worked really well. So that's how I got round conveying the English language sounds in Irish. And I was pretty pleased with that there. Even though it's very obvious now, once I've explained it to you, I was struggling with how to do that. And I've learned, and I'm going to draw to a conclusion now, but I have learned, and the title of the talk here today is what I've learned from translating the Candle of Vision. I've learned a great deal. I really, really have. And I have learned that A.E. had an amazing understanding of our ancient mythology. He believed that all the gods we know of, like Danu or Anu, Danu or Anu, same goddess, and Mannanan, and also, basically Lu, for example, all those gods. He believed, and he's the first person that I've heard actually saying this, that what happened was they were contemporized. The people who knew of them integrated the ancient gods with the other god-like or semi-god figures, like, for example, Maha and Cuchulainn, who is semi-divine, and it's how they made sense of a mesmerizing mosaic of mythological figures. And you know something? That also happens in more conventional religions. So I believe that A.E. Russell, like Joseph Campbell, would say we need to put the mythology back into religion and take some of the dogma out, take the rules and the regulations and the man-made part of religion, and let the mystic aspects breathe more fully. And, this is definitely my final idea, and it ties in very much with what Una was saying and what Anthony was saying about mothers and parenting. A.E. believed that the earth sustains us all, and that our individual memory and then presumably imagination is a portion of the earth memory. And so if you were to find yourself, we'll say, on the side of Slieve Gullion, that the memories contained in the earth would in a way make themselves known to you in a way that we are not able to describe using the left-hand side of our brain. A.E. had a very powerful left hemisphere of his brain in operation, but I think, he cast his nets to the right. And I expect that the candle of vision in the Irish language, and I chose the term Unchinneal Fasa, and I changed, that's the title, by the way, and it's the candle of knowledge that cannot be found in books or on Google. But obviously, so Una in particular was talking about the Mra Fasa, that's the plural, but it's Un Van Fasa is the wise woman, Un Van Fasa. So I took the word ban out and inserted candle, Unchinneal Fasa. So instead of the wise woman, we have the wisdom endowing candle. And James Norton mentioned this the last time he gave a talk, and that what is the candle of vision? It is the small pilot light that we don't often ignite because we're too busy, we're too distracted. But it's this little third eye. And when it is ignited and illuminated, that not only does your mind become illuminated, your whole body fills up with light, and you end up having those dragon crests, those halos, and you energize others around you just by maybe walking across a field 200 yards from a group of hungry scholars at an AE spring school. And you know, it might happen subconsciously. So we're all looking forward now to relaxing like we did in the Charlemont Arms Hotel last night, where you could see that the conversations, you know, everybody was just fired up in the right way. And that's what's going to happen when we move now to Larkins, and we'll relax and we'll reflect and we'll prolong the company. Goracéad Maigah.